dias intensos. Vamos dar início, então, à palestra do professor Rashid Hussain. O professor é um professor associado, né, da Universidade de Bristol, no Reino Unido. Ele trabalha no laboratório de inteligência de segurança de redes. Não é a primeira vez dele no Brasil. Eu estou apresentando ele em português, ele já entende mais ou menos, não é a primeira vez dele aqui no Brasil, ele já esteve aqui outras vezes. E também nós trabalhamos juntos, né, há algum tempo, quando ele ainda estava na Universidade da Coreia do Sul. Então, é um prazer tê-lo aqui, o professor Rashid Hussain.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Michele, for inviting me, and it's a real pleasure to be in Brazil for the second time, and I hope you're fresh enough for the morning. So my name is Rashid Hussain, and I'm from University of Bristol. Today I will be talking about three things, actually. First is cybersecurity, and second one is AI, and third one is digital twin. So I consider these three separate dots, and how can we connect these dots? So, and if there are any questions, please write it down. We can discuss it either at the question-answer session or at the end of the lecture as well. So it's just to be sure that these are experiences from my research and some of the work that I've been doing with many colleagues and collaborators as well. I presume that most of you have somehow taken the cybersecurity course, but if you consider cybersecurity, there are two thinkings, actually. First is what I call old thinking, where we talk about protecting information, protecting infrastructure, and protecting data. And then there's new thinking, means that instead of protecting information, we have to protect services, because we have to think about the business processes, the return on investment, and these kind of things as well. So most of you might be working in a few years, you'll be working in companies, and whatever you learn here, you have to apply it there. So, I mean, research and other things are important, but business is also extremely important. So the landscape is changing. And if somebody tells you that there's a system that is secure, there's a business process that is secure, that is a lie. It's not secure. But the important thing is you have to learn how you can live through insecurity, okay? So you have to have this failure that is also, I mean, you have to live with the failure. So how can you circumvent, if there's a cyber attack, for example, you don't just shut down everything. That's not a solution. You have to have a system in place where you can live through those challenges. So the problem is that it is not only about protecting data and services and all those things, but how do you make sure that everything you do is safe for the business? Okay. Now, whatever you look around, it's cyber-physical system, whether that is your transportation system, whether that is your computer, whether that is your network, everything, or drones, or anything that is considered to be cyber-physical system. Now, if we think about these two things, information technology and operational technology, have you ever thought that when you work through, for example, robots or networks or anything, there are two things involved. One is the operation side of it, another one is the information technology that is involved, for example, the software and hardware side of things. And the consequences of these two are actually cyber attacks. Why so? Because if you're in business, again from personal experience, if you go to a bank and provide them with a very sophisticated cybersecurity solution, they might reject it. Why? Because it reduces the user experience. Imagine you have a banking app that asks 5 passwords from you to log in. It will be very inconvenient, right? So the operational functionality, it always outweighs the security. And second one is the loopholes in infrastructure, which is always, and most of the time, overlooked. And the third one is you want to make sure that the data generating sources, for example, if you are working in sensor networks, they should be trustworthy. You need to trust on the data that is generated by those devices. Otherwise, whatever you do with the data, with the faulty data, you will be in trouble. So, to make things a little bit complicated or take it forward, if you think from 2010, there's so many sophisticated attacks at industrial scale that you would be surprised. I took some from 2025 as well. For example, Marks and Spencer in the UK, they had a cyber attack and they lost the data of millions and millions of their customers. Of course, you won't hear about these in the public sector because they don't want to make it public. And some other attacks, for example, Scania, Microsoft, Kawasaki, there was a Salt typhoon in the US that targeted some infrastructure. There's so many others. So why do we have still in 2025, why we still have these kind of attacks? One have to think that, okay, we are getting sophisticated in cybersecurity, in technology and everything, but we still have these kind of attacks. And these attacks in 2024 and 2025, they were catastrophic for the businesses. So we still have to, worry about what can we do to at least reduce them. Okay, I have to face those guys as well because they will be sad if I don't do. Okay, so another important thing to consider is what do we have currently for these kind of cyber attacks? So current solution, they mainly, if we classify them into major parts, they will be, for example, intrusion detection system. So whatever system you have, what you're trying to do is to find if there's any intrusion to the system. Why? Because if there's no intrusion to your network, then probably you're safe. And then you might say that there might be some insider. For example, the member or the attacker is a part of that network, right? So for that one, intrusion detection system, of course, we have very, very sophisticated solution based on data, based on AI that I will talk about. But it is extremely, extremely hard to reproduce that scenario. Okay, tomorrow you have another attack, and you need to simulate this attack to learn from it and to be applied on the future attacks. So how do you reproduce it? It's extremely, extremely hard. And second one is testbed. Of course, if you have a bank and you want to provide security to your system, how do you test whether your system is secure or not, or whether your system is working or not? For that, you need testbed. I mean, one easy way is to replicate the entire infrastructure of your bank and put it in a separate, for example, a data center or virtual machine and test everything on that system without disturbing the operational side of your business. But that is extremely costly, and that is time extensive, so that might not work. And then there are limitations. By the time you provide solution to your cyber attack that affected, let's say, Microsoft and other service provider, it will be very late. You might already lost millions of dollars, right? So these are the limitations, and most important of all is that it does not cover the entire life cycle of the system. Means that, okay, you might consider, let's say, an intrusion detection at a specific point in time in your business process. but it does not cover the entire business process. How do you know that it happened because of this specific process? Unless and until you have the entire picture, it is very hard to mimic the exact scenario. Then, especially in cybersecurity research, you have to sit in the attacker mind. I mean, what does the attacker think? And what capabilities does the attacker have? And so forth. So you have to have assumptions. For example, what is the knowledge that the attacker has? If you want to produce some kind of solution for your cybersecurity, you need to know what is the knowledge that the attacker has. What are the capabilities and resources? For example, if the attacker has a quantum computer, let's say, to break your password, that is a separate scenario. If an attacker is using a simple computer to break your password or to enter to your network, that is a separate scenario. And what is the goal of the attacker? Is it after the money of your infrastructure? It is after the data of your infrastructure? What is it about? And the final one is, what is the target? Is it targeting the data? Is it targeting the pipeline? Is it targeting the AI model that you're using? What exactly is it targeting? So these are important things that you need to consider. And, well, the attacker mindset are different. For example, it could be militaries, it could be governments, it could be corporations, hackers, doomsayers, some psychopaths, and so forth. So all these you have to take into account whenever you're thinking about your cybersecurity solution. Or somebody just does it for fun. Anybody has heard about Michele? There's a Michele botnet attack back in 2016, I guess. And it brought down the entire internet. It brought down the entire internet in few and many countries by bringing the DNS system. And it turned out there was a undergraduate student in the United States who hacked into the CCTV cameras and used those CCTV cameras as bought millions of them to attack the DYN was a DNS system. Well, somebody just does it for fun, right? Okay, then the innovations that we have and vulnerabilities. One of the major things in the future networks, 6G, for example, that our lab is working on, is open networks. Making networks open, softwareized networks. You might have worked on software-defined networks. So to take it to another level, we make the network very open, softwareize it. And this is, you might just not understand it in full detail, but this is what we call open network, where every box of the network is replaced by a software, a piece of code, right? So this is a great innovation, but it brings down vulnerabilities as well. I mean, if it involves software, there might be a bug in the software. There might be some other problems with the software. So what are we doing for these innovations and vulnerabilities? So what are the trends of cybersecurity in 2025? I'll not go into the detail of this, but you will see most of them. I have taken two. There's another slide as well. AI. So there's a boom of AI, and then the same AI is really, really a threat. Okay, so we can use AI to make systems secure. The intrusion detection system, anomaly detection, all those things that I mentioned. And it can be the attack vector at the same time. So if you look into the ESA, the European Space Agency, they again mention in 2030, till 2030, AI will be the source of attacks as well. So, what do we do to make these systems secure? We can think about evolving solutions, right, to make sure that the advantages of AI are more than its disadvantages. Now, there's still challenges that are stopping us from doing that. these are the limitations of testing in large-scale infrastructure. Again, you can do security solution for small-scale infrastructure, but if they're large-scale, you need a testing facilities to test your security solutions. Now, these are okay, but at the same time, you can think about the cost, fidelity, automation, reproducibility, standards, all these things. To make it simple, if you have a very large infrastructure and you want a security solution for that, you need to test your solution somewhere on exact same replica or almost same replica of that system. Otherwise, whatever solution you have will not be enough. So you cannot risk operational system. You need to have something that is segregated from the operational system in that case. Now, what is the role of AI in this case? So if the machine learning 101 is something like this, you have data, you have machine learning model, and then it gives you a new label. So at the end of the day, it's just input and output and some AI model, right? We will evolve this into generative AI as well, but in this case, what AI, traditional AI does, it comes down to three things: classification, right? Prediction, and forecasting. So whatever machine learning model or AI model you consider does not do more than these things. Some shape or form of these three, right? So if you think about simple AI, what can it do in cybersecurity, for example? Most of the time, what we are trying to do is to detect attacks on the system, right? And just forecast what is going to happen in the future. And we have to classify the behavior of different users in the system, for example, right? So it falls down to any of these categories. Why it is important to use machine learning? Because we have now huge amount of data. There's a complexity in data. If I give you a log file of 10 GB to go through it and see if anything is wrong, it will be really hard, right? And human intuition is really sometimes hard. So human intuition can lead to sometimes false positive, and it might not help. And the changing pace of cyber attacks is really important. Let's say these days the cyber attacks are really sophisticated than before. So to use AI in cybersecurity, I have highlighted 4 things: identify and contain. So you can block the attack. You can first, of course, you have to identify, and then the new and emerging threats. So how do you define a threat is also a question to consider. And more quickly, speed is really important. As I said before, if you find an attack after the attacker has taken out your $1 million, you don't need to do anything, you just sit quiet because it's of no use, right? So automation is really important. And then predictive analytics. AI is going to do great in predictive analytics, and it has been doing, because the network traffic is huge, and the user activity, you can't just manually do it. So you have to use some kind of AI. And also, if you don't have any prior signature of what is an attack, what is not an attack, which is what we call zero-day attacks, you need to have behavior analytics, for example, by social media, which is, again, manually extremely hard to do that. So what AI does is that it uses its gut feeling based on previous knowledge and previous learning to predict about what might be an attack, what might not be an attack, right? Okay. And the second thing is that the network size is extremely large. If we consider, for example, social networks, if we consider the internet network, the size is a monster large. So we need to have some kind of automated mechanism to do that for us. Have you heard about Stuxnet? Stuxnet was an attack that was on the atomic facility of Iran back in, I think, 20-something. I forgot the exact year. But this attack was so sophisticated that it was intelligent. It sat down in the system, read the system, understood the system, found faults in the system, and then it executed itself. So what do you do about these kind of attacks then? Right? Okay. We evolved that figure that I showed you. For now, we have different, you have used, so who uses ChatGPT, by the way? Everybody, almost everybody, right? Generative AI. So what is so special about generative AI? What kind of capability it brings? Before we said that we have only capability of, let's say, classification, right? Prediction and forecasting. But now we have the ability to generate new content. Means that it can generate you code, it can generate you text, it can generate you video, it can generate you pictures and everything. If you think about it, it's extremely, extremely powerful. You can just give it input raw data and it does almost everything for you. So instead of thinking about simple AI, you can think of generative AI. So what can generative AI do for us? Well, it can do the threat landscaping. As we said, the challenges before, that if the network size is large, what you can do is that generative AI can make you threat model that we talked about, right? And it can also outsmart the attacker. So if it learns enough, right? So you can ask it to make you the solution that the attacker cannot break. Of course, it's a cat and mouse game always, but one can at least depend on it. So it can do, for example, malware analysis for you. It can do threat intelligence for you. It can do threat detection, and all those things that we talked about already, phishing, intrusion detection, and all those. These are the solutions that are currently being used by using generative AI. But at the same time, what generative AI can do to you? So first one is this one that you see. We used it in our research to use generative AI to attack AI model. As part of offensive security, what we do is trying to fail the AI model that is doing something very useful. And we were successful in stealing the data, user data from AI model in federated learning setup. And the second one is it will lower the barrier for attacks, for attackers. How? Now, attackers can use and are using generative AI. Of course, ChatGPT will not do that for you, but if you train a generative AI model, you can ask it to write you a malware code that is not detectable by system, right? So it can do that for you, which is kind of scary. And the third one is write backdoor attacks, for example, and also spear phishing. Everybody might receive phishing emails, for example, right? And you can lower the bar by asking your generative AI to write a phishing email that is so convincing that it will have an effect. And of course, misinformation and deepfakes. So these are actually real problems. So the future of cyber ops is to use human intuition with AI. With all these things, of course, generative AI can do all these, but human intuition is extremely, extremely important at this point as well. Now, to connect the dots, who have watched Apollo 13 movie? Only few of you. So in Apollo 13 movie, what happened is that, I gave this talk last year as well, that this mission to moon in 1971, I guess. It was going to the moon, and there was some problem with the spaceship near to the moon. So they couldn't come back, they couldn't go to the moon, they were stranded there, right? So what they did to solve, eventually the astronauts, they came back to Earth safely, but what they did, how did they find solution to the problem millions of miles in the sky? They had the exact replica on Earth, and they replicated the problem on the Earth, and they found solution, and they told to the astronauts to do this, this, and this, and the problem will be solved. So actually, there's a problem with oxygen tank. They didn't have enough oxygen to come back to Earth or go to moon. So what they did is that replicated the problem, right, with exact ship. For example, you have a ship that is on the Earth. You break those things that was broken up there, and then you try to solve. And then you tell them, do this, connect this, disconnect this, and the problem was solved. So what is the lesson from that is that if we have the replica of any system, then you can do what if I do this, what will happen, and so forth. So to make this happen, there's a technology, now we call it digital twin, in I think it's 2014, 2016 something, but this existed back in 1971 Excel, but nobody called it digital twin because it was not digital twin. In this case, the replica was physical ship, but now we can create digital replica of systems, of component, of anything to do different kind of experiments with. Now think about what I said before, that large-scale infrastructure, they're extremely hard to reproduce, and they're extremely hard and extremely expensive to buy, right? So if you can do that inside a computer, then it will solve your problem. Now, there's a different terminologies in digital twin. If you consider two things, for example, physical asset and digital model. This is, for example, physical asset, and if I create a digital model of this microphone, right, then I will call it digital twin, but how? The data that is produced by this system here should be somehow communicating to the digital counterpart. Now there are three things. First is if this data flow is manual, means that I take data and then use it in that system and back and forth. This is what we call a digital model. So the AI model that we work on, usually, they're digital models. The second one is digital shadow, means that the data flow from physical asset to the digital world is actually automated, means that there's, in computer science world, there's an API that I use, which sends the data from your physical system to your digital system. But the decision that you take in the digital world is what? Is implemented manually here. So this is what we call digital shadow. If we make them automated both ways, then we call it digital twin. How? As an example, if I use the digital twin of this microphone and wanted to test how much noise it can bear. So what I can do is that in my digital twin, I can improve, increase, or decrease different parameters to see what happens if I increase the data, right? And if there's a problem here in this physical, and I have the data or parameters of that in the digital world, it can find me a solution. Of course, you have to have logic there, but if it finds me the solution, I can then implement it here in the digital world, the physical world as well. This is what happened back in 1971 as well. But it was all manual, means that they wanted to, I think they used some cotton to wrap up the boxes of oxygen to make sure that the oxygen is not going out or not leaking something. And they told that solution to the crew members, right? It was all manual. If it is automated, which is what Airbus is doing, which is what Rolls-Royce engine are doing, which is what Shell is doing, they will be So the problem, whatever problem you have, might be solved. So what are the applications? You can see from manufacturing to smart cities to healthcare to automotive, food supply chain, telecommunication, and all of them. The pictures you see here, for example, Shell is using digital twin model of its oil discovery to see how they can make the process efficient. BMW is using digital twin to improve their engine performance and so forth. So this line, Elizabeth line in the UK, there was a digital twin model that was built to improve the user experience of Elizabeth line, the train system. Most important one and most interesting one is University of Sheffield is working on the digital twin of human heart to find diseases, heart blockage, and all those things. They take into account different ethnicities, different health conditions, and all those things as well. So what digital twin can do is that it can do all the things we mentioned before, specifically from security perspective. It can do security testing and training, risk assessment, and all those things as well. In security, for example, it does replication, security testing, prediction, and all those. I will just take two examples out of this. But before that, how we can use digital twin, we can use it in two modes. Means if you want to simulate different scenarios, as I said, you can do whatever you want in digital twin that you cannot do on your operational system. If you have, let's say, an enterprise, you cannot simulate an attack on your operational network, right? But you can do it in your digital twin. So you can either replicate it, or you can either simulate it with different setups and different cases. Okay, so in security, we use it for digital forensics, we use it for testing and training, we use it for cyber deception and intrusion detection as well. These are the few of many things that we can use it into. So how can we use security through digital twin with AI? Well, if you don't have access to physical infrastructure, as you heard, I said, you don't want to disturb the operational capability, then your best chance is to have something that is looking like your physical infrastructure, right? And you shouldn't leave anything into chance. What you can do is that you can make tailor-made solution with this digital twin. Means you have, in computer science world, again, you have a virtual machine, and then you can replicate that virtual machine as many times as you want, provided that you have resources for that, right? And then you can automate it, you can adapt it, and then you can make it as accurate as you can. One of the solutions from our experience is that we used gamification approach. So we used a game inside digital twin. This might be very complicated, but I will just explain it in a simple way. So we had a red-blue team, AI against AI inside digital twin to see why AI tells us that there's an attack on the system. It should explain to us why it thinks. And then if we change the attack parameter, then it should again tell us whether it is still attack or not. So we use digital twin to make the scenario, and this was actually this was a vehicle assembly line that we generated, and then we used it for attacks against each other. So we use this gamification platform to make sure that, to just test a simple scenario on what we are saying about digital twin is true or not. The second one, my personal favorite, is Inception. One way of securing things is just, provide a security solution. And the second way is that deceiving the attacker. If you know who is attacking your system, what about deceiving the attacker? Presenting attacker with something that is not true, and you're learning more from the attacker as well. So this kind of security is what we call deceptive security. So if my system is attacked, and I know that the attacker is targeting my web server, what I can do is I can generate a web server, I can create a web server, present it to the attacker to attack it, and I can know what the attacker is after so that I can secure that thing on my real system. So the inception we also did through creating a digital twin, where you can create this deception on the fly. So what you can do is, you can be in the head of the attacker, and you're a step ahead of them, right? So digital twin gives you the capabilities of doing all these things. So there are then certain challenges, of course, you have to solve. I mean, these are research challenges and some computational challenges, but at the same time, it gives you so much capability. So in the Smart Internet Lab, I will not go into the detail, but we are working on the cognition of AI, the human side of AI, through digital twin. We are also making, and we have made the network digital twin of almost the entire 6G. We made the digital twin of intelligent controller and some other things as well. I will skip these, but at the end, I want to talk about a very interesting piece of system that we have at the University of Bristol, which we call reality emulator. So this guy you see here, it's a sector-agnostic digital twinning facility. Here is the summary of this. So what we have here is this one here. So this is a 360-degree cave, immersive cave, with currently we have sensing, we have audio, we have video. In the future, we will have smell, all these capabilities in this. And what we do is that we can create digital twin of anything and present it here to interact with the user. So as I said, what you can do is that you can interact with digital twin, right? And you can interact with any sort of scenario you want. So this capability here, it's actually sector agnostic, means we can connect different test beds, train stations, and all other infrastructure to it. And then we use very extensive AI, ML, and software hardware co-design to make digital model and then present it in this facility here. So this was in the making, but now it is functional. So how do we do that? This is the map of UK, and Bristol is here. So we have different setups. Entire Bristol city is our 5G testbed, and we take all that data, take it to the reality emulator, and do we different kind of experiments on that. This is our 6G experimental setup through entire UK. You can see all these, we have different nodes in all these places, and we are running it from our Smart Internet Lab. So we are currently working on 6G, and my job is to test the security of this entire infrastructure, and I'm using digital twin to do that. So what kind of sectors could we consider? So it can consider any kind of setup, starting from Industry 5.0, from networks, from social sciences, from cybersecurity, future of rail, tourism, education, and everything. To give you another example, recently what we tested is that there's a huge festival in Bristol every year we call Harbourside Festival. We made a digital twin of that festival to decide on where should the police car be, where should be the food carts, where should be entertainment, where should be play places for the children, where should be ambulances, how we can improve user experience to make different kind of decisions based on digital twin. So the final takeaways is that digital twin technology with the help of AI is going to revamp what we think about cybersecurity, right? And it will catalyze the best practices in cybersecurity, because cybersecurity is so sophisticated these days that there are new attacks, emerging attacks, that we need to consider for the security as well. So there's so many use cases of digital twins technology for the security, but the security of digital twin and the physical twin entire life cycle is important as well. So what AI plus digital twin will do is it will convert the small-scale manual testbed into scalable, more sophisticated testbed that we can test more scenarios on. Most of the time, the problem with security solution is that you have not tested it in enough scenarios to make sure that they're pulled through, right? So that is why we need to use AI and digital twin. Thank you so much, and I will take questions if you have any.
Thank you, Rashid. Thank you so much for your very clarifying talk. I think everyone have enjoyed, and some of the things that you told in the beginning of the talk, I explained for the students regarding to the vision and the vision of cybersecurity and this new modern perspective that I think is very important. So I have some questions here.
Right.
The first question is, should we ditch lower level language like C that aren't memory safe? Or is it okay to use it with caution?
Right. Very important question. I am myself a C language programmer. I wrote protocols in C back when I was a student. I'll be a little bit biased because I like C language more than Python and others. But still, I think, yes, partly yes. We have to go to a lower level. Right? To give you another example from our experience, we have this setup, one of the use cases of 6G that we developed, so we have 6G network in our lab, we have this human teleportation use case. And there's a setup where there's so many cameras, you stand in that, the cameras take your picture, make a hologram, and then send it to another place. And there's another setup where two holograms, for example, you're standing in Brazil, I'm standing in UK, we can meet virtually together, our holograms can meet. So we have that system. And we were using Python. Now we are going back to C for some obvious reasons. So yes, I think it's better to be, using C, or C++. They have their own. Of course, they have their own limitations. If the capabilities that you need are fulfilled by C, you should be using C, not just for the sake of using C, but if they're not possible by C, you need to use a higher level language. There's also a notion of time, again. If you can develop something with the high level language, it will take you 1 or 2 days. In C, it will take you probably more time. So there's always a trade-off. If it is very critical for your security, then I think you should be using lower level languages than high level language, because there's some attacks that will just target your compilation, for example, or the interpretation. I hope it's clear.
I would complement that question in regard to using AI in order to improve the implementation in this lower level language. Do you think it's possible, or I mean, could be a path for that?
Yes, I think so. Using AI to improve your code, this is a practice that people are currently using as well. So you can use that, but it depends on what kind of AI are you using, because we know that generative AI, it hallucinates, right? Because it has to give you answers. Sometimes that answer doesn't make any sense at all. If you don't sense check it, I mean, it will harm you rather than giving you advantages. So yes, people are using AI to make improvements to the code as well.
Another question that I have here is regarding to quantum computing. And do you think that quantum computing is a challenge for the future of cybersecurity?
So, sorry, which computing?
Quantum computing?
Virtual computing.
Should be.
Okay.
Challenge.
Quantum computing, okay. It's a very million-dollar question, but there's no right and wrong answer to it. I think no, in a sense. I'll give a reason why. Because if you consider RSA, I personally use 4K key, 4096-bit key, which is almost impossible to be broken by any machine other than quantum computer. So we have quantum key distribution system in place in Smart Internet Lab. We are now integrating quantum key distribution with the cellular networks. It improves cybersecurity by making the key exchange secure, but at the same time, if it is not handled well, I think the problem with the quantum computing is not security, but sustainability. Now, so TLS, we have quantum-informed TLS, and they are standards now. They're quantum key, so there's a quantum crypto. Let's say we have AES, DES. We now use lattices. I think there's a few months ago, there were Kyber. Kyber is one of the algorithms that was standardized, which is quantum safe. So yes, if quantum is used to break the key of RSA, but at the same time, there are quantum safe algorithms available. For example, in TLS, when we have these authentication, now they're quantum safe. So it's a double-edged sword, like AI. AI could be used to attack AI, or AI could be used to provide security as well. The same is with the quantum. But with the quantum, I think the more focus now is about making things secure rather than focusing on the other side of security.
Okay, I think this is the last question regarding to digital twins.
Yes.
How are those digital twins made? How can we recreate perfect replica of reality with all physical laws from real world? And where can we learn more about this?
Right. So to start with, I should have put it here. Microsoft Azure Digital Twin. There's a software, Microsoft ADT, Azure Digital Twin. They have their own language. So what you can do is that you can create a scenario for yourself. Let's say a sensor network. You have 4 sensors connected to each other, exchanging data and all those things. You can start with that, right? And then you can create a digital replica of those inside the Azure Digital Twin. To make it, so this is start. I think there's another one. But Microsoft Azure Digital Twin, I think it gives some free credits to students as well that you can test with. And then you can, with the digital twin part of it, you can do different kind of experiments. You can change, for example, the data of the sensor. You can make it inaccessible. You can do whatever you want with it and test it with the real infrastructure. That real infrastructure is also simulated inside digital twin, but it will give you a sense check. For real world, in our case, in the network case, so we have a running network where we have mobile phone, we have antennas and all those things. At the end of the day, it's just data that is moving around these systems, right? So what we do is that we replicate the entire database of that physical infrastructure. And then we synchronize these two in almost real time. So if there's something happening in the physical infrastructure, it happens in our digital twin as well. So this is one way. The second way is based on physics. So somehow, if you're using robotic arm, for example, consider the vehicle manufacturing plant where there's a robot that is welding on the body of a car, right? So that robot has a specific angle, has a specific motion sensor, has a specific motor, has specific power requirement and all those things. So in order to replicate it, you need to have these kind of data. So you can replicate it based on the available data, based on the physics of the data, and then you can do whatever you want. And the third one is digital twin of behavior. For that, you don't need to have replication. behavior means that if you want to replicate the behavior of an AI model, for example, you want to check the AI model if it works correct or not, then all you need to do is to have an AI model. You don't need to have anything replicated. So it depends on what kind of replication you want, whether that is behavior, whether there's a system, whether there's a single component, whether that is data. Based on that, you can then replicate it.
And this also defines the level of the detail that you give to the replica? Or something?
Exactly. So that is what we call fidelity. If you have higher fidelity, 100% fidelity means that you want the exact replica of what you have in physical world. Sometimes you might need only 10% of the replica, the rest you don't need. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Rashid, for your talk
you.
and for your visit here.
Thank you so much.